Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It is officially 12:10. My name, of course, is Thad Graham. I am the Victim Services Education Specialist here with Family Services. Today, we are going to have a very special presentation helping our heroes, domestic violence in the veteran population. We have and are presenting this in coordination, not just with Family Services, but with the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program over at the James E. Van Zandt VA Medical Center in Altoona. We have some amazing special speakers here for you today, who I will introduce to you in a moment. So of course, Family Services, our mission here is to provide resources to build healthier relationships and promote personal growth. Our vision is to engage with communities to meet the needs of their most vulnerable members. Now, of course, we are going to be talking about domestic violence, specifically in the veteran population. So of course, make sure you are taking care of yourself first. Your mental health is more important than anything. Objectives for today, of course, we're going to define domestic violence and its synonyms. Discuss the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program located at the James E. Van Zandt VA Medical Center here in beautiful Altoona, Pennsylvania. Discuss intimate partner violence in the veteran population. Discuss military culture, as well as how it can relate to intimate partner violence, and just in interactions with dealing with veterans and working with veterans. And to discuss the FSI Victim Services Program, of course, and the services we provide as well. So like I said, you get a break from my voice today, and we have two very special guests. We have Martina Laurito, and Brandon McGraw from the James E. Van Zandt VA Medical Center, who I will show you physically via their webcams here in 1 second, because now I screwed it up. Oh, maybe not, because apparently I lost them. Try one more time here. Okay, well, we will see what happens. You can see them both. Melanie can see them. Perfect. For some reason, they are not showing on my screen, nor are they showing on my other screen. Hey, there they are. They're showing on my screen now if you just flip over. So, hi, Tina. Hi, Brandon. So Tina is the licensed clinical social worker. She's been serving for the past 3 years as the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program Coordinator at the James E. Van Zandt Medical Center in Altoona. Tina has worked at the VA for 14 years, many of those years as a trauma therapist, providing specialized treatment for veterans with co-occurring post-traumatic stress disorder, military sexual trauma, and substance abuse. She is also the Women's Health Champion at the Altoona VA, and in addition to working at the VA, she has held other therapy, supervisory, and education positions in the community, government, and university sector. Tina is a great resource to us here at Family Services. She does an amazing job over there and provides us with a lot of great information, including helping us out today. Brandon is the peer support specialist. He has a total of 7 years in the VA healthcare system. He is a U.S. Marine. He was a U.S. Marine from 2005 to 2009, and he was deployed to Afghanistan in 2008. Tina and Brandon, thank you very much for both being with us today. Go ahead and say hi to our viewers.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you very much again for you two coming on and helping us out today. So today we are going to be, of course, talking about domestic violence and the veteran population. But before we get into the specifics with veterans, we have to, of course, define domestic violence so we understand what we're talking about. When it comes to domestic violence, we are talking about a pattern of coercive behaviors used by one person to gain power or control over another individual. It can be, and most of the time when we talk about it, we're talking about an intimate relationship, but of course, it can be more than that. It can be in that familial relationship as well. All it needs is one person who is willing to gain power and hold that power and control over another individual. You'll hear many terms throughout the day used to describe what we're talking about: DV, domestic abuse, IPV, intimate partner violence, domestic battery. No matter what we're talking about the same thing, which is one person using coercive behaviors and a pattern of those coercive behaviors to gain power or control over another individual. We also have to remember that domestic violence is more than just physical abuse. It can be and often includes other types of abuse as well, including emotional abuse, of course, the physical abuse we all think about and relate to when we think of domestic abuse. It can include stalking, sexual violence, financial abuse, verbal abuse, religious abuse, and of course, litigation abuse as well. Lastly, one of the things to remember is that when we talk about that power and control, we're talking about different ways for someone to gain and hold that power and control over another individual. Those ways, of course, can be using economic abuse, using privilege, using their children. We have to remember that intimate partner violence is more than just those black and blue eyes, that there is a cycle of abuse, and using tools like the power and control wheel with whatever relationship we're talking about, whether we're talking about a teen relationship or a relationship in the LGBTQ plus community. When it comes to intimate partner violence, we're talking about different ways to gain and hold power and control over another individual. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the main topic of our presentation, which is intimate partner violence in the veteran population, presented by our two amazing guest speakers today. So Tina, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Let me know when you need me to go ahead and click to the next slide. You just worry about telling me what to do. Go ahead, Tina. All you.
All righty. We just want to thank our national programs of the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program and the Suicide Prevention Program, of which we gathered this material. And they were very helpful by having this information and these slides available for us, and that we could adjust them and use them for our purposes today. Go ahead, next slide. So that went over the learning objectives, and these are really similar to what he said. I have a few more added on that are more specific, so I'll review them right now. By the end of this training, we hope that you will be able to recognize the impact of intimate partner violence, both in the civilian and the veteran population, to know what the Veteran Health Administration's Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program, also called IPVAP for short, is doing to address IPV, which is a term we use for intimate partner violence, and to increase understanding of the military culture and veterans. And we also hope that you will be able to identify at least one benefit to adding a question about veteran status, family of veteran status to your assessment process. Next slide. So that went over what domestic violence is, and intimate partner violence is a form of domestic violence that involves partners. The way the Veterans Health Administration defines intimate partner violence is this. We use the term intimate partner violence to describe any violent behavior, including but not limited to physical or sexual violence, stalking, and psychological aggression, including coercive acts by a current or former intimate partner that occurs on a continuum of frequency and severity, which ranges from one episode that might or might not have lasting impact to chronic and severe episodes over a period of years and even decades. It can occur in heterosexual or same-sex relationships and does not require sexual intimacy or cohabitation. Next slide. So what is the impact of intimate partner violence? As a medical center, we look at this health impact, both health and mental health, actually whole health, how it affects us overall. And so we look at the physical, emotional, and social aspects of intimate partner violence. And our chaplains might even add the spiritual aspect of it. This impact can be short-term and or long-term. So under physical, you can have injuries, right? But you could also have chronic illnesses, chronic pain, you can have headaches, and they can be brief or they can be long-term, and they can include traumatic brain injury. You can have heart problems. Physical impact of intimate partner violence is much more than what's shown on this slide, but these are some of the conditions. Emotional impacts. These include conditions such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, stress reactions, substance use and abuse, and of course, we have homicide and suicide. And then social. Some social aspects are housing disruption, intimacy issues, trust issues, isolation, work disruption, and poverty. Next slide. So intimate partner violence has been studied in the general population for at least a half a century. There are many, many articles. We have much research about intimate partner violence in the general population. And I think that already said this or has said it on previous webinars, that in the general population, we have 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men who experience intimate partner violence. We usually use that with the physical aspect of intimate partner violence. So 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men. But when we look at the veteran population, which really only has been studied for about the past 10 years, although a growing body of research is being developed, we have found that veterans may be twice as likely to experience intimate partner violence. And we use that term experience to designate that the power and control is being used against them. There is no research that says, even though military is a organization that protects us and does use force, but on an individual level, there is no research that says veterans are more aggressive than any civilian. So when we're looking at what causes veterans to actually experience this violence directed towards them, we look at certain factors of military life, that include deployments, sometimes to combat zones, separations from family, lots of dangerous or intense situations, even if they're not combat related. So military life is honorable. It's also fraught with situations and stressors that civilians just simply don't experience. And the families go through this as well. The partners go through this as well. And this carries over into veteran life as well. So these factors do appear to, at this time, show that this may be why veterans experience up to twice as much intimate partner violence. There are unique experiences that veterans have also as they return home. Next slide. So one of the impact is housing insecurity. And so we know that women veterans who screen positive for IPV are 3 times more likely to have housing instability. And when we talk about this essentially is homelessness. So women veterans who screen positive are 3 times more likely to experience housing instability. We also know that Veterans Health Administration patients, these are ones that come to us. There are many veterans who aren't signed up with us, and we'd like to reach out and invite them to participate, to sign up for services, because we know that for the most part, those who access services at the VA can get more assistance and more help. We know that veteran patients who access services at the VA who are homeless have higher rates of assistance than those who don't, because the community has services and we have services. We know that veterans who experience sleep disorders, traumatic brain injury, pain diagnosis, mental health issues, like those who experience intimate partner violence, have a higher rate of suicide. And so we're doing something about that. And intimate partner violence, like suicide, is a public health problem, and we all have a role in prevention and intervention. Next slide. So one of the major things that the Veterans Health Administration is doing is that it has created the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program. The vision is that veterans, their families, and caregivers, anyone who experiences life with a veteran, will receive care from the VA, and also VA employees will not experience or use violence or abuse and will be free from the negative consequences resulting from that violence. So this program is for our patients, our veteran patients, partners of patients who also are able to receive care here. There's a small number of partners and spouses who are, and caregivers who are able to receive care, and then our employees. This program covers all of us. Our mission is to implement a comprehensive, person-centered, recovery-oriented assistance program for veterans, their families, caregivers, and employees who use or experience intimate partner violence. And I use the term use or experience because we are a hospital, we are a mental health center, and why we use that language is because it is considered trauma-informed, and we provide trauma-informed care. So we use these principles of trauma-informed care in our language and our documentation. Trauma-informed care involves providing people with safety, and that's for everyone. We serve everyone. We serve those who use violence. We serve those who experience violence. And so we want to build this safety, both psychological and physical safety. We want to build trust. We want to be transparent about what we have to report, what we're mandated reporters, which is not intimate partner violence, but child abuse is one of those areas. We want to give people that ability to understand that we are trying to work with them and that we are sensitive to cultural, historic, and gender-related issues. We are strength-based and recovery-oriented. And so we use that non-stigmatizing and non-labeling language, and we educate all. So our focus is on relationship health and safety. We working towards prevention, early intervention, and we provide information and resources, safety planning and treatment, and referral services. Next slide. So my role is to raise awareness, and that involves staff training and education, as well as these speaking engagements, campaigns through Domestic Violence Awareness Month this month, awareness events, and developing materials, and building community partnerships. Another thing that we're doing today through outreach events and sharing resources. We also here at the VA in a role as a coordinator. There's one of me or somebody who does what I do in every VA hospital throughout the country. And we serve those who experience intimate partner violence. So we've implemented routine screening, and we have interventions and resources, and I'll be going through that in a little bit. In my role and in coordinator's role throughout the country, we serve those who use intimate partner violence because we want to try to intervene and assist people veterans who are using violence and aggression in their relationships. If we can catch people early on and they're not afraid to reach out to us and allow us to tell them about what we can provide them. And we want to really hear what they have to say and develop those partnerships with them so that we can introduce the interventions that we have. And of course, we serve VA staff, and that's building internal collaborations with employee assistance, workplace safety, and all the different departments here at the VA so that we can work together for the benefit of those we serve. Next slide. So we're screening every patient, we're screening every veteran here at least once a year and more if someone discloses they're experiencing intimate partner violence. And we screen because it does make a difference. We know that women who talk to their healthcare provider about intimate partner violence are 4 times more likely to use an intervention. And an intervention could be anything from letting someone else know what's going on with you, using the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, contacting your local domestic violence agency, planning how to be safer in your home if you're not able or ready to leave. And if you are ready to leave, being aware of your choices and your options and receiving help. So we also know that women who talk to their healthcare provider are 2.6 times more likely to exit abusive relationships. And here at the VA, we have women veterans, but we also have majority of male veterans. And so I see this with men as well. Men are more likely to use an intervention, and men are more likely to exit an abusive relationship. And men also, and women, are more likely to recognize that they may be the one using that violence, and we have treatment for them as well. Next slide. So our treatment options for all veterans here, we have outpatient mental health treatment to include individual, group, and couples therapy. We have outpatient substance abuse treatment, and that includes individual, group, and intensive outpatient treatment. We have residential treatment options throughout the VA. We can send people to different VAs for different types of treatment. And these types of treatment include treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, substance use, any kind of dual diagnosis, and some other treatment, such as for chronic pain. We also have chaplain services and spiritual counseling. And then specific to intimate partner violence, we have something that's called Strength at Home. Strength at Home is an evidence-based treatment that has been found through empirical studies to be the only treatment that appears to be effective in working with veterans who use aggression and violence in their relationship. And then we have Strength at Home couples that we're going to be bringing here. It is one where there would be an assessment to determine that there was no reason that these couples could not be together for treatment. That a good assessment must be done, but if couples are able to be together, then we teach those principles of Strength at Home to couples so that they can improve the quality of their relationship. And then there's a treatment called RISE, and we'll be being trained in this specific treatment this upcoming spring or late winter. And RISE is a trauma-informed therapy program for any VA patient who has experienced IPV. And this includes verbal threats, controlling behaviors, coercive or unwanted sexual behavior, and physical aggression. And it consists of approximately 8 sessions that are chosen by the veteran in collaboration with the therapist. So it's also very trauma-informed. And then there's a program that the pandemic kind of put a hold on. It's called Warrior to Soulmate, and Warrior to Soulmate is a relationship workshop that the VAs have developed, and we had hoped to bring it here, and we hope to do that within the next few years. Next slide. So here's a way that if you want information about intimate partner violence and the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program, we have a public-facing website. If you type in va.gov and then type in intimate partner violence or IPV, it will take you to this site. It's the Veterans Health Administration social work site, and you will find lots of information about our programs and more information about other resources in nationally and community on a national level. So one of the numbers that we use is our National Domestic Violence Hotline number, and we partner with them on a national level. Next slide. And I think we are now going into the military culture, and there's no one better than Brandon McGraw to discuss the military culture. He's a United States Marine Corps veteran, and we're really, really happy to have him as our mental health peer support specialist. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, Tina. Again, my name is Brandon McGraw. I'm basically just giving the presentation today on military culture. So the way that I guess it's the easiest way to describe it is just to start out with the general definition of military culture. And that's basically the ideas and beliefs that are instilled in us from day one when we arrive at boot camp or basic training. Over all different branches of the military, each one has their own technical version of culture that they follow, but in the end, it pretty much is all encompassed by all branches, that it kind of translates over to one another. So after boot camp, you kind of check into your duty station, you get to know other people when you start to get a deeper understanding of that culture. It's so important because that's usually what we find ourselves falling back on during our time in the service. A lot of the times we do the things that we do for the ones to the left and to the right of us and tend to forget about ourselves at times, which can lead to bigger problems down the road, especially after we get out of those situations. Veterans and service members are generally not going to ask for help, as that the bullet point states. The fear of stigma prevents people from reaching out. And that stigma is kind of that if you reach out about something being wrong, you're kind of generally looked at as being weak, and you get kind of a red flag stuck on your chart. So a lot of people won't reach out for that and just try to find ways to deal with their issues on their own, which a lot of that leads to internalizing all the problems. 25 to 40% of military members with mental health issues will get help. And the one way I look at that is coming home. When we come home, we don't want to admit that we might be broken. We want to be strong and believe that we are still that same person we were before we left. And in a way, we still are, but for the most part, everything about us has changed, whether we notice it or not. And that's where a lot of the internalization comes into, because when we finally do start to notice that there's issues, we don't want to admit that. We always fall back on ourselves when we have nobody left, and it usually helps us find a way out of it. We don't process a lot of our trauma, and in the military sense, adapt and overcome is kind of a common term. So not processing our trauma and not understanding what goes into that, we kind of tell ourselves that we can adapt and overcome to any situation that we put ourselves in. When family members or community members might point out to us that we are different than we used to be, that can somewhat be a kind of a trigger for us. That's when typically you'll see a lot of pushback at the ideas and then shutting down without wanting to take any steps further to get those helps, to get the help. Friends and family that are closest to us are usually going to notice the symptoms of PTSD, trauma, anything that we have before we do. And I like to share the story of whenever I came home because it's pretty similar to this. When I came home, I was kind of lucky because I came from a family of military members. And it was my dad, who was a Vietnam veteran. He started to notice little things about me that not a lot of other people could pick up on. And the one day he just confronted me about my issues, and he said, and the one thing that I always try to pass on is, it's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to do nothing about it. And that was one of the first things that when he said that to me, it kind of like made everything click in my head, that he understood what I was feeling, how I was acting, and why I was acting the way I was without me even having to explain it. On the flip side of that, having to explain our thoughts to somebody who has never served, that can be one of the more difficult tasks, because a lot of those times we're not willing to share what we experience because the feeling is that those experiences belong to us. They don't belong to anybody else. I know explaining things to my wife or my mom or anybody like that, it can be kind of scary to me, just because we don't open up about the things that maybe we don't want to scare them with, I guess is the best way to explain it. And we don't want them to have that different perception. When we leave active duty, there is I like to call it an identity crisis of sorts, because for 4 years or 6 years or 10 years or 20 years, however long the person serves, That's their only identity. That's the most important identity that they carry with them. And in a lot of ways, if you ask a lot of military members, they'll say that that's still one of the greatest things they've ever done with their life. It was the one time where there was a sense of direction and purpose, and we knew exactly what we had to do to get the job done. What we find out over time is that we believe that our family and civilians in the community don't always understand our mindset. But once you're able to find a way to communicate your issues with them, it's a little bit easier. They still might not understand the whole entire situation, but there is a way for them to have that you're opening that door for them to step in and see a little bit of what goes on in your mind. A lot of the times too, whenever you're able to open up about that stuff, the feelings of being ostracized and internalizing your problems, they tend to go away. Next slide. So this is just a little graph here. One second. A little graph here that shows the different aspects of what military culture and how it impacts us after we get home. And the first graph is 48% of military veterans experience strains in their family life. And a lot of this can be tied back to the feeling that they don't understand, I don't want to put that fear of what I go through into their mindset. So usually it's one of the bigger problems that faces our military is the stress that it has on the home life after we return from deployment. A lot of divorces, a lot of just running away from problems and not wanting to share and help yourself grow during those times of struggle. 47% feel a sudden outburst of anger. And again, that just stems back to a fight or flight mode of sorts, I guess you could say. 44% have a difficulty adjusting to civilian life. And again, that goes back to feeling as if that's the greatest thing we've ever done with our lives was being in the military. A lot of it too is also with feelings that they don't understand what I'm going through. When you're having a tough day in the military, it's real easy just to walk next door, knock on your neighbor's door, tell them what's going on, and 90% of the time they're going to have the same exact feelings that you are, and you'll be able to discuss those and move on with your day. The stress and triggers that can follow you after you get out, somebody probably has no idea what they said or what they did set you into a bad situation in your own brain that you can't get out of. So it's a big adjustment from going from military and living that lifestyle over 4, 6, 10, 20 years to having to start over and figure out a new identity. 5 to 39% have issues with alcohol dependence. And this goes back to talking about internalizing the problems. The easiest way to forget our problems that we believe in the military is we'll just have a couple beers with our friends and then we'll pick up and start over again the next day. So alcohol use whenever getting out and coming home from deployment is one of the bigger issues. 19 to 23% have a traumatic brain injury. And this is usually has some type of impact to do with how our brain reacted to things one way before we left, and then coming home, not understanding the differences that happened and why certain triggers hit us a way that others don't. 13 to 20% will experience post-traumatic stress disorder, which I kind of feel like that's a lower number on the scale. I would probably guess that it would probably be closer to 30 or 40% of people dealing with PTSD after some type of service in a combat zone. And then 10 to 15% experience depression, which again, I'd probably say that it might be a little bit higher than that. Just as far as if people will be open to admitting those issues. Next slide, please. So stemming back on this about military culture, one of the easiest questions to ask is if somebody served in the military, what did you do during your service? And I mean, with me personally, I know if somebody asked me that, I could go on for 15, 20 minutes, maybe even longer, just talking about what I did in the military and how much fun it was and all that. It's going to bring them back home in a sense. One of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people, a lot of civilians will mistake is that all veterans are soldiers. And this is one that kind of I take not personally, but in our little culture of with the branches and our little rivalries. Marines are always Marines, Navy are sailors, Army is soldiers, and then the Air Force is airmen, women, and same with Coast Guardsmen and women. A lot of the Marines pride themselves on the culture of being a Marine, so when it's brought up and said we're called soldiers, that's why you'll usually hear somebody who knows a Marine, or if they were a Marine, they'll correct them very quickly and say, no, we're Marines. And then service can be full-time or part-time. It's broken down into active duty, National Guard, and the reserves. Active duty, you're full-time. Reserves, you report 1 weekend a month to your military branch, and then the National Guard, it's usually based out of the state. Next slide, please. And then just some screening questions, if you've ever needed any to try and figure out ways to break down the barriers to get into the good graces, I guess you could say, of the service member that you're working with. Here's some just basic questions that you can run through with them that kind of will hopefully help break down those barriers, because the biggest thing is always just feeling like somebody cares. And if there's a genuine interest in what the person did during their service time, it's usually going to get you a little bit more of a reaction from them, a positive reaction from them, where they might pull their guard down and allow you a little bit inside their mind. Next slide. And then lastly, just keep in mind, a client may consider himself or herself to be a veteran. To optimize understanding, intervention, and possible referrals, benefits, resources available, ask your client if he or she has served in the military. The questions given on the previous slide can kind of help guide your conversation if you're unfamiliar with the military or you're not really sure what to say. And allow them, make sure that the military member is getting enough time to answer the questions. A lot of times the barriers can be put back up when it kind of seems like that, okay, maybe they're not that interested in it. Maybe I'm just gonna shut down again. So anytime a question's asked, just be sure that enough time is allotted to that service member to be able to discuss what they would wish. Again, convey a willingness to listen, and they'll keep wanting to come back and try and figure out any issues that they may have with you. Next slide. And then these are just some trainings on military culture. They're very good. So if you have anything further that you're interested in learning, these would be great websites to check out. Contact information for myself and Tina.
Perfect. Yes. Well, thank you both very much. I will put this back up on the screen here at the end. And if you have any questions for Brandon or Tina, we'll have a few minutes here in a few minutes for you to answer or to ask any questions that you may have for them. So if you have any, please feel free to put them down in the question and answer section now. So of course, to wrap up, just to remind you of the services available here with the Victim Services Program. Our helpline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 814-944-3585 via call or text. The FSI Justice Project is a program available to survivors of domestic violence looking for civil legal help. If you know anybody or if you need help when it comes to civil legal matters with domestic violence, divorce, custody, etc., please reach out to that helpline, 814-944-3585. Of course, follow us on social media. All of our webinars, including this one, which has some really good information on veterans, veteran life, and intimate partner violence dealing with veterans, will be available on our Go to Stage and YouTube for future viewing. Of course, Women Aware is also back. So if you know of anybody in an abusive or intimate partner violence relationship who is looking for support, Women Aware is a 1.5 hour and a half group meeting weekly to give support and resources to women who are going through or who have been through a domestic violence situation. Of course, we will now open it up for questions. I want to take this time as well to thank Tina and Brandon for giving us your time and your knowledge. I truly appreciate you both coming on and helping me out today with this topic that is truly, truly needed. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the question section. We will hang out here for a few minutes. If not, everybody have a wonderful Webinar Wednesday.